top and the side views. I can also double click on the viewport so that I can either only see a single viewport or I can see 4 viewports. So when I'm here, I can only move in kind of orthographic direction. I can zoom in and out too. So using the middle cursor of my mouse, and again, you want to be using a mouse. If you don't have one, get one within the next few days. So I can zoom in as far as it will let me, which is pretty close. Oh, yep. And then I can zoom out. I then can, if I activate the right click, I can pan. So you know that's happened when you see the handprint. Handprint is, or the hand icon is the panning. So I can move side to side, up and down. If I go into perspective, if I use the right click, now I'm orbiting. So you know that's happening when you see the orbit symbol turn on. And so I can see almost any direction of a 3D object, and even my drawings that I started here. Okay, so what you want to do is you're going to draw each elevation and the top view. So here, the middle is the top, and each of these drawings is the side view. So, and we'll discuss how to start doing that. So you can see here, I've established layers, and this is, again, really important to do as you are working, because these are going to determine line weights. So the red is going to be my darkest line weight. And I've labeled that here as number 1. My lightest line weight is the blue one, and that's at the bottom. Rhino doesn't really have hierarchies like in the same sense as Photoshop or any of the Adobe. Or any of the Adobe programs. So there isn't as much of a stacking issue, but I can, let's say, I can move certain things up and down. So like, for instance, I can send backward, right? And now this green line came above the red. I can send 2 back. And now the blue line is above the red lines. But I want to see the red line on top. So I'm going to say bring to front, and then I can see the red line first. Can you please make sure your volume, your microphones are off? Thank you. Okay, so now it's going to be easier for you because you have your physical model. And you can kind of look at it. Okay, again, the chat is not for being stressed, okay? Ask questions specifically about the assignment, but please pay attention, be taking notes. Don't stress out, okay? Anything new, okay? The point of all of this, everything that most of you haven't used Rhino before or any digital program, all of this is new. That means it's a challenge, but that means you're learning. So if you are confused, that's a good thing, because that means you're learning something. That means you made the right decision about, getting into this program, because you're learning something new. Again, the TAs are here to help you. Don't stress out. You have plenty of time to produce this exercise. And this is not the most complicated thing you're going to do. So please don't overstress and just relax. We'll get through this. Okay? Okay. So you will have your physical model. So you need to be referencing that model when you are drawing this. I don't have a model, so I'm using photos, which makes it more difficult for me because I'm guessing. But you don't have to guess, because you can measure your model. You can take a ruler, you can look at it, you can measure it. You also have the grid here. That's a measurable increment. So as you're drawing, you can literally draw what you see in Rhino. Just like you're drawing on a sketchbook, you can draw in Rhino too. Okay. So the main tools you're going to use are the polyline and maybe even the rectangle, maybe. But the first thing I want to do is figure out my proportions, right? So again, you're going to measure this. I am guessing because I don't have the model in front of me, but I know that these are half-inch increments, so I can get away with guessing. So let's say this is 1, 2, 3 inches, right? I know that this here is 3 inches. So once I've started the polyline tool, I click, and now I can start drawing a line. If I hold shift, now it's going to draw the line in orthographic directions. If I hit tab, now I don't have to use my fingers. Like, here's my hand, but I'm moving it. It will lock that direction. So now if I want to draw 3 inches, it's only going to go in this direction. So I'm going to put 3 here. You see at the command line? So now it can be even more precise. It can be specific about the measurement. So oops. So now this line should be 3 inches. Can everyone hear me still? Took my headphones off. Okay, so I want to draw the next line, which I'm basically drawing this shape right now, right here. Okay, so I'm drawing this kind of L shape. So next thing, I'm gonna, again, lock the position. For me, I work this way. I can do this. I could do this in like a second, just by using the locking. And I also want to make sure that everything is orthographic. Okay, so now I can say again, let's say it looks proportionally like it's 3 inches. Oops, I put 3 feet, 3 inches. Okay, so the inch symbol is the quotation mark, right? The feet symbol is going to be what's that other one called? The one that's also on the
apostrophe.
Okay, or I can type in inches or 1 foot, 1 inch. Okay, so now I'm basically making a closed curve here. So now I would say this, I can reference this. This is an inch, 1 inch. Oop. So here I would probably stop so that I can then draw the next corner. So right now I'm drawing my model in the exact measurements as your physical model. So everything is 1-to-1. So the great thing about Rhino is that you can work in real world scale, which is your physical, the actual dimensions of everything physically, or I can work in scale. So we're not working in scale right now. That's something we'll talk about later. So everything is going to be 1-to-1. Every measurement is going to be, if your model is 1 inch, you will draw 1 inch. 1 inch. And now I can, again, lock. So you want to make sure, actually, something I need to point out here are your snaps. So if you look down here, I have all of these, what you would call these parameters for that will reference certain items, like the end point of a line or a surface, something that's near
So for instance, if I start a new line, you can see that it's kind of locking to that endpoint. I can also lock it or kind of hover over the line, and that's called near. So then I can then start a new line there. Also, midpoint is another one I use. So it will always, so if you're working and you need to reference the middle of a line, it will tell you midpoint. That is the midpoint of this line. Perpendicular means that, for if I want to draw this line at any point on the line, I can make it perpendicular. And there's these other ones. There are other ones here too for like locating center points, tangent lines, but the main ones you want to use are end, near, midpoint, intersection, perpendicular. Those are the ones I always use. The other thing you want to make, so you'll see that's, on and off. It's called OSNAP. You want to always make sure that's on. It should always be on. Smart track too. So that's going to help. You saw how I was able to create that line just by referencing another line. You see that there, that it's showing me that guide. That's because of Smart Track being on. So you also want to make sure that's on. It makes you work, it helps you to work more quickly and efficiently. So now I can reference, because I want this line to be at the same endpoint as this bottom point. And then I've created that shape. So right now these are two separate curves. I want to close them. So I'm going to select each line. Just select, hold shift, select the next one. And then I'm going to join it. So now it's one closed curve. One closed curve. Okay, so this is going to be this shape is the closest to is the closest in terms of depth, because Noel brought this up. In terms of depth, this one is the highest point. So that's going to be my layer 1, because that's going to be the darkest line. Okay, so now I'm going to start drawing what's next, right? So what I'm seeing next is this shape here, the one back here, this platform here. So that's what I would draw next. So this project is pretty rational. Everything seems to align pretty much to every edge. So I'm just going to say that that is the shape of that platform. This platform is right here. But you can see here there's this carved away area. So I need to subtract that. So I'm going to draw a line. I know it's 1.5 inches by 2 inches. Oh, is that right? Yeah, 1.5 inches. Actually, maybe this is not. Okay, 1.5 inches by 2 inches. Okay, I guess that is right. And this is actually the shape. If I select these lines and I use the middle scroll button and I just click on it, I can get these kind of quick actions to join too. So now I have this line here. And I'm going to change that layer. I know that there's this piece here. It looks like it's 1 inch by whatever that, this distance is. Or sorry, 1/2 inch. So, this kind of isn't in the right positions. So if I want to move that, I can type in move. Again, Rhino's pretty intuitive. For every action, there is literally a command for it. And now I can move that. So I can select this. I right click on the layer and then I select change object layer. So now that line is on that layer. So now I've started to draw the top view of this model. Is this making sense to the people who have their video on? Yeah. It's not that complicated, right? It will take some time, but at least you have your model to draw from. I had to draw from pictures, which is far more difficult. Okay. So it seems like, so what you want to, when you're looking at your model, you're going to see what's first, but you're also going to see what's beyond, right? So what I'm seeing first is this shape, but what is beyond are, these volumes here and this this edge here, and also this edge below. Okay, so this is something that you want to be aware of. It is pretty similar to AutoCAD. Yeah. So if you've used AutoCAD, you can almost directly use the same logic here. Some things are different. I would say Rhino has better capabilities when it comes to working in 3D, but it's also capable of drawing in 2D and making drawings. So now I have my top view, and I can use that to reference the rest. I can use that to start to build the sides and draw them out. So again, you will have exact measurements, right? I'm going to rotate this so that this edge is here. So if you saw what I did there, this is the gumball. That's something you want on too. And it's a fun, again, it helps with, working quickly. So I can select something. Once I have something selected, the gumball will turn on, and then here, these points will stretch, right? That's not usually something you want, but I can also rotate. And if I hold shift, it will lock it in orthographic directions. So I just rotated this so that it can align here. And now I can begin drawing this side. So I'm going to use guidelines. So that's my guidelines layer there. And I'm going to start drawing reference points because all of these shapes relate to each other. So now I'm fixing the proportions. Okay, so the first thing I probably want to do is draw the boundary of this model, kind of rationalize it. Let's see. So this one's going to be 1, 2, that's 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches by 4 inches, 8 by 4. Wait, that's right. So I can draw using the rectangle tool, this is where it becomes useful. 8 inches by 4 inches. There it is. I can select it now using the gumball again. I can just drag. So the green arrow is the Y direction. The red arrow is the X direction. Once you get to 3D, there's a Z direction. So you can move things up and down. But you don't need to worry about that right now. I can also, again, say move. I'm going to move this because I want to move it precisely here. See, now everything is referencing. So now I'm using this as a reference so that I can draw my elevations. Okay, so again, I'm going to start measuring each of these sides. This is very mundane. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. 3.5, you see me typing this, right? And now it's going to come across 1, 2, 3.5. 3.5 inches. Oops, so you can see that's not what I want. go back. Okay, and now it goes down 1, 2, 3 inches. I feel like this makes so much sense to you now, right? Just measuring the model, 1, 2 inches. One inch. And now, because I have this reference point, I know that this is probably going to end right here. So now the next shape, so I can see that this area is the same, this line and this line. But I'm making assumptions right now because I don't have the model. So I'm just referencing that. 1 inch, oops, it happened again. So I can go back. 1 inch, oops, stay there. 1 inch. So when I give it the unit and when I then select enter on my keyboard, it will input that unit. There are too many things. So, you really have to have patience. As you can see, these things are getting in my way. Midpoint, I don't know where that's coming from. Why is it doing that? Okay, and now I'm almost done building this shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. One, 2, 3 inches. There we go. That took me a couple minutes. Not that bad. And now I have this. I have the one part of the elevation. Now I need to draw in what's beyond this edge, right? So I have this object here. There's this profile here, and that's what this is kind of doing. This frame, this kind of reference rectangle in the back is referencing what's beyond. So now I can draw in all these things. So I'm going to do that for each. You're going to do that for each side, right? So let's say I'm done with this. I can select this, rotate it, and now I can draw the next one using the guidelines. Does this make sense? Yeah. Okay. So then once you've done that, I've drawn all the elevations. Then you're going to start drawing sections and a plan. So if it's a top view, right, that's a plan. If you cut through from the top, that's called a plan. If I'm cutting through an object in the vertical direction, that's called a section. So what you're going to do is, and hopefully you'll be able to, I encourage you to ask your studio instructors to discuss these types of drawings. But basically what you want to do is you're going to visualize this, right? You're going to kind of predict what the section is going to look like. So for this exercise, you want to, for your sections, you're going to use increments of half an inch. So either half an inch, no further than 1 inch, cutting through your model, right? So you imagine there's an invisible line that's cutting all the way through this model. That's what the section is going to be. Does that make sense? Yeah, maybe, hopefully. For the plan, right, if I'm looking in the top view for my plan, I'm also, I would say 1 inch at least. You can probably go further because there's more depth to the well, depending on the orientation of your model, but it's the same idea. So whatever point if it's 1 inch or more, that's going to be the line of that plan that goes all the way around the model. And that's where I'm going to imagine that's getting sliced off. So when the plans and sections are used to reveal new information about an object or whatever it is that is not apparent just from looking at it, right? So especially with your models, there might be certain aspects of your model that are hidden behind certain elements, right? For instance, in this particular model, there's these kind of excavations here. So I would use the sections here to utilize, what else is happening beyond certain surfaces like here, right? So I would want to cut through this model back here so I can reveal some kind of spatial moment or whatever that's happening beyond. Does that make sense? What sections are used for? Okay. So you're going to first draw the elevations in the top view, and you're going to use those to begin drawing sections. So the layers, again, as Noel pointed out, the layers here are used to produce depth in the drawings, but for our that's one aspect of it. These layers are also being used to organize. So we're using the layers to organize and to produce line weights for drawings later on. You don't have to make the line weights yet because we're not going to get there, but you need to organize your drawing properly. So whatever is for the elevations, whatever is the nearest, like when you look at it, right? If I'm looking at my model, whatever is the closest to my face, that's going to be the darkest line weight. Whatever is further back is going to be a lighter line weight. So that's how you're going to start establishing your layers. Hopefully that makes sense. When we get to sections, the darkest line is going to be our poche. So here you can see I've used a color to fill in where the section is. So I'm going to rotate this, rotate. So, once you can start rotating this thing around to make it easier to draw. So here is my elevation here, but because it was a thickened area, I believe I was looking at which drawing? This is where I was cutting my section for this drawing, right? It's a pretty thick area. So the section and the elevation are related to each other. So in order to use hatch, you first need a hatch, which is going to, and I'll show you what that looks like. For sections, you normally, for this exercise, you want it to look solid because you're cutting through something. So in order for the hatch to work, you need a closed curve. So you see here, it's completely enclosed. It's not open. So once I have that, I'm going to use the hatch command. And now you can see that there are all these preset hatches. But you want it, for this exercise, you're going to use solid. So now I have a hatch, and I'm going to move that to my hatch layer, which is a gray. And now I have a section. This is a section drawing. Does that make sense? Hopefully. If it doesn't, you'll get there. So you can see here on this one, on this elevation here, the elevation is different from the section because of the point where it's cut. It's revealing part of the model that you can't see from the elevation. So this is where sections are important and useful for revealing more information about your project that's not easily either seen or apparent just by looking at it. So you see that here? So the way to determine your sections is, as I said, you're gonna either use the 1/2 inch increment, right? But you wanna use the section to reveal something new about the project. So find that point that is expressing something new sectionally that's not seen in the elevations. So I can't tell you what that is. You have to look at your model. I'm just giving you a set of rules to use. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. For each side, you're going to determine a section. Again, the rule of thumb is at least no further than 1 inch back, right? So from each orientation, for each orientation of the model, you cut a section. Yes, one orientation of your model, and you're going to do this for both your models. You have 2 models. There will be 2 sets of these. Yes, for this assignment, you will only be drawing 2D in 2D. We're not in 3D yet. That'll be next week. Okay. Does this are there questions? That's basically it. So for next week, what I need to see is your drawings organized in layers like this with hatches for the sections. What you're going to do is just take a print screen of your Rhino viewport. You're going to turn off the so if you go to display, you're going to turn off the grid and the C-plane axis, and then you will take, I have the snipping tool, that's what I use all the time. New, like this, there it is. That's what you have to submit. 2 of them, right? Because there's going to be 2 models. Okay, so for next week, you have this, okay? You're not going, let's see, you have a week to do this. If, this is a learning process, so I imagine there might be errors, but you want to have, and, try to do this. If you want to, utilize the TAs, okay? So if you are completely lost,